Nili, thank you so much for doing this today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
Before we get started, I like to usually do like a little icebreaker question with people.
Okay.
Like, what's one question you get asked so much that every time you hear it, you kind of die inside a little bit?
Well, I would be remiss if I didn't go to the default, since it's the first thing that comes to mind, right? But unfortunately, a lot of us get asked, "What's it like being a female guitarist?" And yeah, that's the cringe one for sure. It used to get asked more. You used to get asked it more, but I think it's still out there a little bit.
When I first started doing this, probably about so I started my blog about 13 years ago, maybe, and it, especially coming into hard rock and heavy metal, as it was kind of getting modernized, you started to get a lot of, especially European progressive bands that had female vocalists,
Right.
And then it was called female fronted metal.
Right.
I kind of like, I appreciated what people were saying, but I was like, we don't call it male fronted metal.
Yeah, I know.
But I have to say, it is kind of nice to see that over the past decade or so, things have kind of changed for the better.
Exactly. Yeah. The last 5-10 years, it's amazing, like, what a big percentage of the working musicians are women. I mean, it's great.
Do you feel more comfortable now, like, knowing that there's a bit more like social acceptance, as far as like not referring to you as the girl who plays guitar, you know?
Well, you do still get I mean, I think you're just basically like, that's the only thing that's left, is maybe you get, well-intended compliment that's with the wrong words or something like that. But in general, I never really felt bad, and the world seems more accepting. But in general, like, I don't feel like anything in my life really changed. I always felt like people that I work with accepted me and didn't doubt me because of my gender or anything like that. So
to me, that's really cool, in the sense that, like, some of the other female artists that I've spoke with in the past,
not everybody's had that experience. Like, I realize that, so yeah, I know that's not the norm, and maybe I just got lucky. But
I was actually quite surprised in some of the actually a fair number of the female artists that I've spoken with over the past years or so, that a lot of them didn't have that experience as well, because they do what they do and they take themselves very seriously. And if you're going to be in an industry where, just like any industry, every industry more like is male dominated, so it's kind of, unfortunately, you cats have to go in there and work twice as hard to kind of break through the macho arrogance of men who are like, wow, you play good for a girl, whereas like for me growing up, like I'm a huge Doro Pesh fan. I was a huge fan of Lita Ford, the Runaways, like all those bands. And maybe it was just my upbringing that I never looked at that and was like, wow, they're girls playing.
Yeah. I think even if you get a sour look like that when you first meet somebody that you're going to work with, as soon as you prove that you have every reason to be there as the next person, that quickly goes away, so I think there's a difference between others in the industry and people that you work with versus like how the outside has accepted it, you know what I mean? So I think it's a lot easier when it's just the people that you're working with, because chances are they're mature enough to understand that it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? So
probably about a year ago or so, came across like your videos just kind of showed up in my feed because I was following some other guitar players. And one of the things that stuck out to me was I was whisked right back in time to the 80s when I was younger, and all the Shrapnel artists.
Yeah.
And Guitar for the Practicing Musician and stuff,
Yes.
And I was really excited because it was so neat to me to see you had this like melodic capability to your songs and to your playing that wasn't just like flying through scales. Like, did some of your influence come from that stuff, kind of like that Paul Gilbert, Blue Saraceno kind of stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I loved a lot of the Shrapnel guys and
Mhm.
grew up on that and grew up on both instrumental guitar as well as a lot of pop and vocal music. And so, and not to say that I was trying to merge the two, but I was just kind of always a lover of hooks and memorable songs. And I kind of felt like, well, just because I play guitar doesn't mean that I should have to give up having a song. You know, I just had to find a way to say it on the guitar because I'm not a vocalist. And so that was kind of my plan with that. And the outlet for the solo, you know, it's got its own time and place, and that's all good. But I just kind of always felt like I wanted to have some sort of a tune to go with it. Otherwise, it was way too boring for me to just shred. I didn't particularly like to do it or listen to it. And so I guess that's how we got here.
Part of me wants to think, especially in our conversation right now, that the term shredder is probably as annoying as female guitar player because
It is. It's so true, though. Yeah, I mean, and it sucks that, I mean, in a way, it sucks that both of those things have kind of like a negative connotation in any way. Like, female guitar player, it's like, why do you need to specify it all? And shredder, it's like, that's neither here nor there. You know what I mean? Like, why does that have to be a negative thing? Shredder doesn't have to be not musical. It's become a very polarizing term.
oh, here we go again with the shred shit.
No, I'm so used to it though. You know what I mean? I try to take it all in jest and not to heart because that's a term, you know, it's out there. We've all heard it. I hear it all the time. I'm not going to take it as an insult.
You know, growing up listening to hard rock and metal, and I started playing guitar when I was like 12, 13 years old. It's almost like once you got to a certain point of learning how to play an instrument, you hit a crossroad of like where you want to go. Like,
Right.
do you want to like completely excel and take that instrument like to the mountaintop,
Right.
or do you want to be Malcolm Young? And
Right.
I wanted the Malcolm Young side of it, because I loved rhythm and things like that. But my obsession and my love for solos and soloing, I felt like I got to live vicariously through, Richie Kotzen and all those
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I heard Surfing with the Alien by Joe Satriani and Satch Boogie that I was like, there is a bridge right there.
Yes, it is. Yes.
That I didn't catch from a lot of the guitar players before that.
That's right. Yeah.
Like, what's your thought on that too? Would you say that's kind of fair, or?
I think so. I mean, he's certainly not the only one out there, but I've just felt like guitarists, we tend to overplay and overwrite because we don't have to breathe to play our instruments, so we never have to stop. If you are a vocalist or you play sax or any kind of instrument that requires breathing, you're going to learn a natural sense of phrasing because it's kind of embedded into your whole vocabulary because everything is centered around when you're going to need to take a breath, literally. And so just like talking, everything gets punctuated a little bit easier when you factor that in. And so for us, it's like we literally, our hands will keep going forever if you let it. And so I think that's kind of that plus the culture of playing too many notes and unfortunately the more kind of sport attraction of it to some people, I think the combination of those two things kind of misguides people a little bit sometimes. And that's too bad because I don't think that, distorted electric guitar should mean that we've now gotten rid of any compositional anything because we can play a lot of notes.
One of my good friends is Jordan Rudess from Dream Theater.
He's so wonderful. What a cool, I mean, he's incredible, of course, but what a cool guy too. Like,
he is like salt of the earth. Like he's one of my favorite people ever. And I remember talking to him, about the same thing. And one of the things he had said was, he said, when this is your instrument, it's endless.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do it all. You can do little, you can do some. And he said that that's the exciting part about being able to do that is because, but you also have to kind of know where you're at in certain situations. Because obviously in Dream Theater, he can't just go through an entire song,
right?
Like how he would a solo composition.
Right, exactly. Well, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Do you find it hard to have that kind of restraint?
Yeah, It is absolutely. I think that's kind of the name of the game. Is just like feeling like your hands are tied a little bit because you can always add another note. You know, when you play too many notes, there's always time to add a couple more notes. And so, yeah, 99% of the time, you're just like, you should have stopped here. This is where the period of the sentence goes, not like 5 words later. And you don't want to discover that when you're listening back and you're like, well, that phrase was good up until I made it a run-on sentence. So that's literally what it is to me. And it's funny to bring this up because I've kind of found a running theme between that and how I speak or how I write or how I explain things. And I'm like, this is very interesting. But yes, it is a lot of reining yourself in and just trying to be in the moment and trying to figure out, listening for, okay, where does this phrase actually end? And committing to that. That is the hardest part, and especially when it's all in the moment. So yes, it's a lot of, when you're feeling like your hands are tied, you're probably doing the right thing. That's why it's so hard to accept it as this is the proper course of action.
I would also assume it takes a whole nother level of discipline to be like, okay, this is me doing what I do, but now I'm doing something with someone else. I'm not the center. I've got to find my way to kind of go,
and yeah, but part of it is the ego side of it, right? And the other part of it is just, again, like deciding to commit to what's going to serve the music. And as hard of a commitment as that is, I think when you remember to look at it that way, it's a lot easier to do that, because if you remember, hey, I'm on a pop gig, this is not my time to play too many notes, that probably helps you play less, I hope.
One of the things I was actually just thinking about when we were talking about Guitar for the Practicing Musician was that, I remember getting that magazine, like I had a subscription, and I would get it. And I remember looking at the tabs and almost going into like a full-blown panic attack because I was just like, this is so much. But now with like, we have YouTube, and then there's the was it Stitch? Not Stitch. It's like gaming platform. I think people can also
Twitch.
Thank you. Yeah.
Stitch sounds pretty close. Yeah.
I can't keep up with the shit.
No, who can, man? Listen, there's only so many hours in the day. How much can you be accounted for? Like, God.
And even as a musician myself, I try to stay on top of it. And I feel like once I get one, like then all of a sudden it's another impossible. One. And I'm like, okay, screw it. I'm just, But like, I look at these platforms and I'm thinking like, okay, it's kind of made the world a little easier for up and coming musicians to have access to learn how to play songs and whatnot. Do you think that there's an element of magic that has gone away from kids having to sit down and look at this tab on a book versus like picking things up from someone on the internet?
Yes and no, but only because you still have to do the work, and in a lot of cases, because just like tabs weren't always right and most of the time were wrong and you still had to figure that out, the internet is full of choices, too full of choices, and it's not like you're provided with, hey, this is the right path to learning, or this is the path for you to learning, and whatever. Now you're faced with, here's 1,000,001 choices and I don't know what the right answer is. Right. And you still have to go and spend the time and decode it and hopefully not pick up bad habits. So I think it kind of evens out with, maybe then we didn't have the resources, now we have too many freaking resources. And you still need the guidance at the end of the day to figure out the right path. So I think it's somewhere between that. In a lot of ways, maybe it's harder to be self-taught because of that, because good luck. Again, it's like so many distractions. How do you find what to do?
I was trying to learn a David Crosby song a couple of weeks ago. What was it? I think it was Traction in the Rain. And he plays these really odd chords and like an odd tuning. And I'm like, I want to figure this out. And so I go online and I'm looking it up and I go on YouTube and there's like a college kid who's like, this is how you play it. And I'm like, oh, this is incredible. And I'm playing it. And then I played it for a buddy of mine and he was like, oh no, that's just in standard. He normally tunes it. And I'm like, I was like, so is this right or wrong? And he was like,
exactly.
Does it feel good to you? Does it sound good to you? And I was like, yeah. He goes, well then,
And it's right. Yeah, if it sounds good, it is good, you know? The man himself knew. I kind of follow those teachings. I feel like you can't go wrong with Van Halen dropping knowledge in the most concise and brilliant way. But again, that's why I think it's maybe made no difference in the real big scheme of things, because at the end of the day, you have to do your own work, right? Like
Right.
you're going to take something from somewhere, but you're always going to have to decide for yourself, and the ears hopefully will trump everything else. That's my hope for everyone, because the internet and having resources can really save you on a rainy day if you've got some big question mark about some lick or some solo that you were dying to learn, and that solves your whole mystery. I love that. You know, I wish I had that in certain moments, but at the same time, the value that comes from doing your own work and learning stuff by ear is just, I can't speak to it enough that it almost doesn't matter. I don't want to say to people, ignore all the stuff that's out there, but if you can just learn by ear and stick to that as much as possible, it'll serve you so much better.
In my vinyl collection, especially all the records from when I was younger, you can tell which songs that I was trying to learn, because they're the ones that have like little scratch. Like,
exactly.
You can tell,
yeah,
I just
exactly
over and over again was like, trying to do that, figure this song out. And then just the gratification of being like, wow, I figured out what that mystery chord was.
Exactly. Yeah, and you know what? Like years later, it's so much more than just the satisfaction of that, and yeah, the sense of accomplishment that comes with it is huge too. That's nothing, not belittling that at all.
Yeah.
I can see how I'm going to end up dating myself when I'm going to be the person talking about, I just missed the YouTube age generation by a few years, and I still had to do all my, back in my day, we had to do our own way. Like it's going to tell people exactly what time we're talking about.
I feel that way right now a lot of times.
Yeah, I already do. I mean, but because technology is going so freaking fast now, like you could be 20 and be saying that and it would still be true.
Music technology is also growing at a very rapid rate with things like home recording and things.
Yeah.
Do you spend more time at home, like doing recording at stuff than you do in a studio for yourself?
I pretty much always have. So that's not that different for me.
Not having to look at a clock constantly.
It's better. Yeah. I mean, that's definitely and I have to say, getting used to that does not prep you for doing sessions either.
Oh.
You kind of got to give yourself a clock, because then when you're put in that situation, you really have to stick to it, and you realize that it's difficult.
To go from doing your solo type stuff where you're the boss of you and like and steer and you're holding the wheel.
Right.
Then going in and working with someone, say like Danny Elfman, where you're actually like projecting someone else's work.
Yeah.
How is that for you in your mindset? Like, is it a level of stress? Is it excitement? Like, I mean, like, what's that transitionary feeling when you're going from you to someone else?
I wouldn't say it's stressful. I mean, I'm definitely usually excited about it, especially if the music's really good. What really depends is what the artist is giving you, right? Some artists have a really clear sense of, this is a guitar this is the guitar part I want. I came up with this, I wrote this, I recorded it in a demo, and now you have like a clear sense of exactly what they want. Or at least a guide of, if I kind of prep this, it's probably going to be somewhere around there, right? And then you're going to have the sessions where you have complete freedom over something, and you have to try and read what that person is kind of wanting from you, or whether they're really looking for you to just do you. And sometimes that's what happens. And again, it goes back to, if I put the goal, or if I put the priority on serving the music and doing what I think is best for the music, that just seems to be the right answer, regardless of whether it's for me or for somebody else. Right? Like if I start with that intention, we can at least go from there and then tweak it from there. And sometimes the person wants something else in the moment, and you have to figure out how to do that. That's sometimes what happens, but generally you have a pretty clear idea of, there's a set thing for you to play, or at least close to it, it depends on whether it's like a solo or a guitar part, in a song or something. So
And having to remember that when you're working on something, that there's nothing more important than the song.
Yeah, exactly. Like when you have a good grasp on what your role should be in that situation, it's a lot easier to provide that without those voices in your head telling you to do something else.
So you've got like a lot of impressive gigs under your belt. Like you've been doing the Cirque du Soleil for a
Yeah.
while. You've got the trio with Jennifer Batten and Gretchen Mann and Danny Elfman. I mean, these are like fucking incredible gigs, you know?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Like and I've watched you do all of them, you know, like online, and I was just like, you couldn't kick the smile off your face if you tried.
Well,
Like,
I know. Just try, right? No, I mean, I always say, like, if you weren't happy with that, how are you going to be happy? You know what I mean? Like you'd have to be a miserable bastard to not be smiling. Like it's like maybe you're at the wrong spot if you're not happy with that. So
those Danny Elfman gigs, though, that my first thought was, because my sister-in-law lives out in LA, and she's a huge, you know, Nightmare Before Christmas.
Did she go to the bowl shows?
I don't know if she went to those shows or one of the shows, but all I remember thinking is, like, when I saw that those shows, I was like, that needs to tour. That needs to happen.
Yeah.
Like,
I know.
Has there been talk of that? Maybe
there's always talk.
Oh, talk is always happening. Yeah,
there's always talk. You know.
But will it happen? Is the thing, right?
Yeah, I know. Your guess is as good as mine.
I mean, those were spectacular shows. I can't even imagine the rehearsals or the planning to get to that point.
It's a lot of moving pieces. I mean, you're just 50 musicians on stage alone just to begin with, and the crew is like twice as big, you know. It's so many people, and it's such a huge production. It's incredible. To me, it's always been an incredible testament to teamwork and this whole, like, look at what people can do when there's chemistry and they all work together. It's like unbelievable.
Just watching that footage to me was just so captivating, because I thought to myself, I said, that's like a musician's dream, is to be involved with something so grand.
It really is. And it's something that has such a long history that's respected and beloved by so many people, especially in Los Angeles. You know, it's got a heritage. It's not just, you know, big name, whatever. It's iconic music that means so much to so many people, myself included. And so it's a whole other thing.
And even if those people didn't realize it, because I think a lot of people have even loved that music and not put two and two together that they were all Danny, right?
Yeah, you pretty much have to live under a rock to, like, say that you never heard that music, right? Like, there's not a person on the planet that doesn't know the Simpsons theme song. Like, literally, you know what I mean? Like, where are you going to find someone who's never heard that?
In addition to that, you're basically hitting the road with metal royalty, with like Brendan Small and, you know, the Atomic Clock himself, Gene Hoglan, and
God, Gene is so good. I know. I'm so stoked to finally get to do a whole tour with Dethklok, because the one-offs leave so much to be desired. The audience is so amazing and so diehard and, like, second to none. You're not going to find any audience like that anywhere. And so to think that we're going to bring that across the States is just such a fucking luxury. It's like a vacation, you know what I mean? Like, you get to, like, play that shit and have people freak out like that every night. Like, that's amazing.
You got to prepare yourself for, like, mosh pits to, like, the Duncan Hills coffee, you know, song.
I know. It's so much fun to, like, watch. You know what I have to say? Everyone is so respectful, and it's so fun to watch security guards help out crowd surfers in the nicest way, where, like, they're letting it happen. They're letting you get all the way to the media pit, and they help you down, and then they escort you back. I'm like, I love it. I love watching that happen over and over again. It warms my heart.
That's a whole nother level of intensity when you're playing.
Dude, yeah, intensity of everything. Yeah, everything.
How do you keep yourself from, like, running too fast, if that makes sense?
No, you make a really, really good point. The pacing yourself is a real thing. And yeah, it's hard, you know. You have to, like, kind of, you know what, that might be something that Cirque really helped me with, because when you sign up for the 10 shows a week thing, that's the ultimate test of how you pace yourself, because you want to go hard at those shows when you're next to all these dancers and acrobats and they're like going full out and there's so much energy and the music is so good, and you really want to give everything,
Right.
but then you're not going to make the week. And so you learn how to, I don't want to say operate under 100%, but
Right.
just kind of conserve some energy. So I think it's become easier to translate that to other shows, because they're also less physically taxing. Um, so yeah, it's more in a mental way with Dethklok, but it also helps that it's not a 2-hour show, and the animation like gives you a little bit of a breather, and we have amazing techs, and that helps a lot, and so the machine runs so well that it really lets you just do what you do. And so it's a lot easier, and it's also really much easier when you're not in that stupid costume. I mean, it's not stupid. It looks great. It's all over the top, whatever, but moving around in that shit like forever when you're thinking about like, oh, I could just be with Dethklok and just wear a tank top. It's like way easier, like, it's not the same thing. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it does have that. I just remember the first few times where I felt that contrast of like, I go and I do something that's really hard and all of a sudden it feels easy because I'm not wearing this armor that I didn't realize. It's like, yeah, it's going to freaking hinder you, or at least feels like you have an extra layer of whatever. So when you take that off, it's like that parable of the guy who said he had too many kids and people in his family. So the rabbi or whatever told him, bring a goat in, like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, when you take the goat out, it's going to feel like you have all this extra room.
Everything's going to feel like a cakewalk after that, it's so funny.
Exactly. That's what it is.
I'm sure you know Guar. You remember Guar, I remember like way back when, like this was like in the 90s when they used to do a handful of shows called as ROG, where they wouldn't wear any of the costumes, and you could still see how even though they didn't have it, they physically still moved like they had the costumes.
You're moving like you have all this stuff. Yeah.
And I just remember talking to one of the guys after that one of those shows, and he was just like, he said it's so hard to like not to break the mannerisms of wearing all that stuff, even when you're not wearing it. He says, but trust me, I know it's not there because 5 songs in, I'm not like feeling like I'm going to die,
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. It's like, if you get used to doing it with the 20 pounds on you, it's a cakewalk after that.
I've seen that setup that you have for the Cirque shows and the guitar, which is,
I mean, it's over the top. It's over the top. It looks amazing. I mean, listen, it's completely like theatrical, Vegas-y, on brand, everything. What can you say, right?
It looks so much fun. And part of me, like before this interview, my first thought was, God, she's got to have a guitar that shoots shit out of it for the Dethklok. Like, that would just be amazing.
Yeah, that problem with that is that you have to get fire marshals involved, and it's a whole thing. I wish you could just randomly shoot fire in whatever theater you wanted to and wherever you wanted to across the country. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way with pyro. Oh man, that would be great. Yeah.
So, like, in your opinion, what is an album that you think that everybody should own?
Oh man, Queen 1 and 2. I'm like, for everyone, that's probably a very important choice. Yeah.
So if you could play guitar for any band, past or present, who would it be and why? Like, just for one night.
Oh man. There's a lot of I don't know. I'll go with the totally like how I'm feeling in the moment answer that changes every day or whatever. But one time I had a dream that I was in Cher's band, and it was just like the coolest thing ever in the dream. And I woke up being like, how freaking cool would that be? Like, it would be so much fun to be in Cher's band, like, so I'll say that one. I don't know. It just seems like amazing.
And that's funny because as you said that, I pictured it like right when you said shit, like, because I always, know she has these like big grand bands with these incredible players.
Yeah.
Are there some other artists that have ever approached you about being part of their ensemble at all? Or
Yeah, I've had some auditions for some like interesting people like that. I don't know if it's like a super public thing when you didn't actually do the gig, but every once in a while that kind of thing comes around, and I'm always all for it. And it's I think we really need to like cherish the icons that are still around because we don't have a lot of them. I think that's what I always walk away with.
I love that because there's so many of these iconic artists, from so far back that are still going, that I tell folks all the time, even if you're just a moderate fan of somebody, you should go and witness a live performance.
You should go see that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have so many regrets already about people that I never thought I'd miss that I'm like embarrassed to say that I did. Mm-hmm. And you just think you're going to have more opportunities than you sometimes do. And it's sad reality of life. So yeah, every time we lose a legend, I'm like, I make it a point. It's like, okay, now it's even more important.
Even if you don't really like him, I was like, go see Bob Dylan just once while he's alive.
Yeah.
I just said one of the best shows I ever saw was a Bob Dylan show, and then one of the worst shows I ever saw was a Bob Dylan show. But you know what? I saw a living legend twice in my life.
That's it. That's really what it is, because we're not going to have. We lived in a generation that had him around, and like that's already rare, I mean, listen, the fact that we had someone like Freddie Mercury and a Michael Jackson and a Prince and all these guys in the same lifetime,
Bowie,
is like, what are the odds of that? You know what I mean? Like,
it's so true because like, and even as you were just saying that, I was still just like, I was thinking, God, that list, Ronnie James Dio, like, these iconic legends that made such a huge impact on music, but yet you're just kind of like, I wish I would have taken that Friday off of work.
I know. So maybe that's like the public service announcement of today's podcast is like, invest in going to see the legends, whether you really like them or not.
But is that really a horrible thing to do, right? I mean,
no, that is really not a bad message. Yeah. No. Yeah.
And I guess the last thing I also wanted to tell you was that when it became news that Nita Strauss had left Alice Cooper's band, you were the first name in my mind that I said, God, Nili Brosh would be so perfect in that role. Did it even cross your mind a little bit if that came down the pipeline that you were like, I could do that?
I mean, I kind of knew it wouldn't because she made it so clear, and I knew that from even without her saying it, but I knew she wasn't leaving. You know what I mean? I was just really happy for her that they were allowing her to go and have another experience after being in that band for so long, because she really deserved to do. I mean, she committed to that for so many years that I was just really happy for her that they allowed her to do that, and everybody wins. It would have been a lot of fun for sure. Yeah.
Well, you definitely would have been able to shoot fire out of your guitar.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Well, Nili, what else do you have coming up? You've got the Dethklok and Baby Metal tour that's coming out, which is going to be exciting, and that's going to be a full-on tour. Like, what else do you have in the pipeline?
So I got the 2 songs coming out. Yeah, so that's big. I mean, I have not had a lot of time to release new music in the last few years, which is a great problem to have, but also I want to get as much of my stuff out there. Still doing Cirque every once in a while, doing a few solo shows with this new songs. If you go to my website, there's a bunch of dates on there, so I know I'm doing something.
That's,
tell me where I need to be today,
Again, and like you said, that's not a horrible problem to have.
No, it's the greatest problem to have. I feel like such a douche ever saying anything about it. I really do, man.
I have to say that I loved your album Spectrum.
Oh, thank you
so much. And one of the things that it did remind me of was when Buckethead released those 2 albums, Colma and Electric Tears, because it was such a diverse stray away. Have you considered ever doing kind of like an acoustic based album?
Uh, Not by plan, but there have been compositions that kind of made me think like if there were many of these or a few more of these, it may have to end up being a whole record, or that's just the way that record's going to end up, or whatever. I mean, it's just that's kind of how Spectrum came about too. You know, it just I had a bunch of tunes that were all different and didn't seem like they really made sense on one record, and that ended up being the common theme. So
Which was
I try to let it be a result and not like the original plan.
well, I can't wait to hear what you got coming up with the new songs. And
Thank you. Yeah.
you're an incredible player and you're an incredible
Thank you so
person.
much.
And it's been
Thank you.
so
Thank
great
you.
to meet you and talk to you.
It's been so fun. What a fun way to just shoot the shit today. I love it. You're my last one for today, but I feel like I've been doing a lot of them in a short period of time. So that's why I was like, wait, did we talk about that? Because I can't tell if it was today, but they've all been a lot of fun. You guys are very like accommodating. So I love it.
I just think you're such a talent, and but your attitude and your positivity just kind of comes through in everything you do.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Thank you. Thank you. I so appreciate that. That made my day. Now I can go on with my day and feel great about it. Thank you, John. It's been awesome.
It's been awesome too, Neely. Thank you so much, and hopefully I'll get to see you in Atlanta.
Absolutely. Yes. See you soon.